This is HSC Core 2, Factors Affecting Performance. Key idea 4, how does the acquisition of skill affect performance? And the dot point is the learning environment. And there's 4 dash points there, as well as some pretty complicated student learn to dot and dash points on the right hand side of the syllabus. But I'll try and answer those as I make my way through the video. I think this is probably one of the more challenging dot points in the entire syllabus, just because of the sheer content that's involved. In one of the instances, you're actually required for the student learn-tos to refer back to a previous dot point where it says to have an awareness of how instruction may vary according to the characteristics of the learner, and that is one of the previous dot points where it asks you to have an understanding of what role, say, personality, confidence and ability play in the learning of a skill. So anyway, let's have a look at what the learning environment is all about. The previous dot point in the syllabus, characteristics of the learner, looked at how traits such as confidence and ability levels will impact on how quickly an individual can learn a skill. While this dot point, the learning environment, focuses on the factors outside of the control of the individual as they go about learning skills. So, for example, my class this year learnt the quite unusual skill of speed stacking to help us with this particular dot point. And it'd be really helpful for you to, as you go about doing this dot point, to have some sort of skill up your sleeve to help you go about formulating a response to many of the questions you may get in the HSC. So I'll show you a bit of a quick demonstration of what speed stacking looks like. So I'll refer to this skill of speed stacking throughout this video, and it'll helpfully give you some understanding of quite that challenging right hand side syllabus question. So the first actual dash point is nature of the skill, and one of the aspects that will influence how quickly an individual can learn a new skill is what type of skill it is, or put it more simply, what type of skill is speed stacking? Well, in everyday language, speed stacking is simply stacking cups in pyramid shapes and then unstacking them as quickly as you can under the pressure of timing. Unfortunately for this dot point, you need to get more technical than simply just describing what the skill is. A skill can fall into a number of different categories, and that's what makes up this particular dash point. The first of these categories is called open and closed skill. So what that means, a skill such as speed stacking is either an open or a closed skill. Now, an open skills are those where the skill is executed in a constantly changing environment based on external factors. So an example would be making a pass in soccer, because your teammates are moving and the defender is moving, which means the environment is constantly changing, making the skill more challenging. Now, a skill can also be classified as a closed skill. Closed skills take place in a more stable environment, and the athlete knows exactly what to do and when. Skills follow set patterns, such as a serve in tennis. Now, for example, the skill of speed stacking would fall under this idea of being a closed skill. The next category is either a gross and fine skills. Now, gross skills involve the use of the larger muscles groups, such as the arms and legs, which are used in running and swimming, while fine skills involve intricate control over the smaller muscles in the body and generally involve needing a high degree of hand-eye coordination. Throwing a dart is an example, and certainly the skill of speed stacking is an example of requiring fine skills. The next classification is, there's 3 of them: discrete, serial and continuous skills. Now, a discrete skill is one where skills that have a clear beginning and end point. Examples include hitting and throwing, but a really good example is pitching in baseball. That has a very definite beginning and end point in the skill. We then move on to serial skills, which are groups of discrete skills combined together to produce a very complex and often difficult movement to produce. An example of this is a gymnastics floor routine, and I'll show you a demonstration of that from a recent event. So that gymnastics floor routine was a combination of many different discrete skills combined together to form one very complex gymnastic floor routine. So moving on to the third of these classification is continuous skills. And these are skills that have no real clear beginning or end point, unlike the discrete skill that we mentioned earlier. And the skill is then repeated like a cycle until stopped by the athlete. Examples are included in the pool and swimming events and also bike riding. Pace skills is where the athlete decides when to start the skill. For example, the golf shot or somebody on the 3-meter board diving. So that was an example of Adam Scott driving the golf ball, and that's a clear example of a self-paced skill where Adam Scott was in complete control of when he decides to start the skill. The opposite of that is an externally paced skill, and that's when another athlete or official has control over when the individual starts the skill. So two examples there, a batsman in cricket who sits there tapping his bat waiting for the fast bowler to deliver the ball, or the runner who's there waiting on the starting blocks for the gun to fire.
Set.
So that was the example of the externally paced skill there of all the runners waiting anxiously on the starting blocks and just waiting to all the runners were set and the starter fired the gun. So the next dash point is the performance elements. Now for an athlete to move into the autonomous stage of skill development, they need to be taught more than just the skill itself. So athletes need to be taught the performance elements, and these include such aspects of tactics, strategy, and decision making. If the coach does not coach the performance elements, the athlete will not be able to implement the skills effectively in game situations, and particularly when they're found under pressure in games. During a game or event, an athlete needs to make many decisions that will influence their individual and team's performance. Now this is known as decision making, and in the example of this cricketer here, he's obviously made a very poor decision in terms of what shot he'll play. Decisions such as what shot to play in cricket, to a certain delivery, or when and who to pass the ball in playing soccer are examples of decision making. One way a coach can improve a player's decision making ability is in video review sessions after the game, where the coach will sit down with the team or individual players and review their performance after the game to assist them in making better decisions in the future. The next part of the performance elements is strategic and tactical development. Athletes must be able to read game situations on top of just having the ability to perform skills. Players need to learn where to move on the field, both to receive a pass or where to move to defend an opponent. Learning these aspects of the game is learning all about strategy and tactics. Coaches need to implement a tactical games approach in training and not just about teaching skills in isolation. A tactical approach puts movement skills and tactical learning within the context of gameplay. This means the athlete learns large parts of the skill in game simulations during practice time. Learning to pass the ball in soccer does not end once the player has made the pass. Learning where to move after passing the ball is important. For example, the term moving into space. We're going to leave this video at this point. We've done the first two dash points of the learning environment dot point. We've done nature of the skill and also the performance elements. The next two dash points, practice method and feedback, will be done on part 2 of the learning environment. And you can find part 2 by going to the website and following the link to core 2.